let's talk about the feds and how they might be interested in what you're watching on YouTube if you fit a certain criteria and you watched a certain video on a certain day, even. So, a United States federal court ordered Google to turn over the identities of tens of thousands of users who watched a certain video in a specific time frame. So the content of the video was about mapping via drones and augmented reality software. But here's the thing. The content of the video doesn't matter. It's not like you're watching how to make bombs on YouTube or anything crazy like that. The content of the video is secondary to the reason why they wanted this particular video to see who watched this particular video. It was because investigators behind the scenes have been communicating with a suspected money launderer. So somebody they've been messing with, and they sent that money launderer a link to this video. And they knew that that person then went and potentially clicked on this video to watch it. So they were trying to use Google's tracking capabilities to then get a list of people to say, like, this pool of 30,000 people who watched this thing probably on this day, maybe 2 days, I'm not sure. Our money launderer is in that pool somewhere. Right. So instead of just being the entire pool of the internet of everybody, they tried to basically use information from Google to say, that guy's probably in this list somewhere. So it narrows it down a little bit. Yeah. Narrow it down, exactly. So information they wanted them to turn over were names, addresses, telephone numbers, and browsing history. So that tells you that, by the way, that Google has all the information on you if you're watching videos on YouTube, just so you're aware.
I mean, if the algorithm tells you anything, you should already know that, right?
You should already know this, but yes, just know that's the case. So they turned over apparently as many as 30,000 individual records of names, addresses, and telephone numbers. I'm guessing that the police were then able to narrow that down even further to their suspect, because I'm guessing from that 30,000 they were able to then say...
When I read it, it wasn't clear if Google actually handed that over or not.
True, they haven't confirmed or denied.
Okay. I don't think it's clear that actually... Yeah, of course.
I mean, of course they turned it over.
Of course they did.
In the past, a subpoena literally...
we got that. Here you go.
Tell me any subpoena where these companies have pushed back on. The only public ones we've ever heard about has been Apple pushing back on the subpoena when they tried to unlock their iPhone.
Yeah,
right?
because that
made massive news.
Yeah, it did.
That made massive news. So trust me, behind the scenes, Google's doing this probably every day. Just a guess.
Every day.
But I would guess they're turning these over like crazy. The only reason we're hearing about this one is because it came out, right? Because we now know about it. I'm guessing this is quite common. It's basically a honeypot. They set up a honeypot and they relied on Google's information and tracking information to find out who the person was. Right. So, Sarah, you worried about your YouTube history getting in the hands of authorities? Do you care? Is this even a big deal?
Yeah, I mean, going back to when my husband didn't want to have any smart speakers in the house. I'm boring.
Was he watching YouTube?
I know. I'm boring. There is nothing to hide in my house. And I get the broader thing, I shouldn't unlawful search and seizure for sure. I have rights as a citizen, but if I am going to have this technology, I'm going to use this technology, then I am giving up some of my rights to use that technology. And I know that not everybody does. And some people might think that they are browsing privately when they're not browsing privately, and that they can hide their search history from the courts. They can't. But so I know if I want to be truly private, I'm going to need to lock myself in a closet with no technology or anything like that. But if I'm going to use technology, if I'm going to have my phone near me, I am basically giving up my privacy rights, and I'm choosing to do that, and I don't care. But some people might.
What do you think, Bobby?
I think that we need to. This is something that the government could look into. So instead of Apple, that's what I think.
Department of Justice. Hey, I've got a good case for you.
It's Fourth Amendment, I mean, I think that we should have a right to some privacy. We also shouldn't be caught up in some kind of dragnet because,
True.
I don't want to be at home and get swatted because, I mean, that video they took there is something I would have actually watched.
I stumbled across this video and I watched it.
I've been interested in augmented reality and mapping with drones. Right. That'd be kind of cool. I mean, really? Okay.
Yeah. and
Yeah,
other
make a mesh map
information
out of that.
points them to like someone that's in near my area.
Right. Well,
you know,
that is the thing.
Right.
I'm hoping other information is involved in this too to narrow that window down.
Yeah.
I would hope that's the case because 30,000 people is still a big like search window, right?
Yeah.
So I would hoping there's some other information that like points them. But you're right, Bobby. You could get mistakenly like maybe it came down to like 5 people and
We've
they decided
seen
to like
shootings where it's happened. You know, like where they've shot people and you're asleep in your bed, someone busts in, you know, and get shot.
Right.
You're like, whoops, sorry about that. We didn't, you know, we thought
My
you were a
bad.
drug dealer.
right.
yeah.
Bro, why?
Yeah.
Well, you looked at a drone video.
Right. I
also
like
wonder
drones. What?
What's that?
I also wonder if maybe if the person used a VPN, like it would have like
Sure.
gotten rid of all of this
Hidden
stuff, or
that
an
stuff
account that
anyway.
wasn't registered to them. I mean, a couple of
Right.
steps here, and the person would have been hidden. So I just wonder if, you know, maybe did they even catch this person? We'll never
Right.
know.
So-
We'll
Right.
never know whether it's actually worked or not.
That's an interesting point because I did a lot of, I was actually reading about VPNs this week and about the different classes of VPNs, and some of them are RAM only VPNs. So like ExpressVPN. No, we're not sponsored. I'm not going to like tell you why you should use Nord or ExpressVPN, but there's been some other ones with Nord specifically and other companies that do keep their records.
Mhm.
And what people don't understand about a VPN, if you log in through a VPN, the VPN can see all your traffic.
Right. It's just another point. And
Exactly.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Yeah.
And if they're recording it or storing it, then the government could come there and go, tell us who this user is, who it is, because you're not necessarily private.
100%.
Yes.
Nope.
Now, are you private on the other end when you're surfing out there against Google or whatever? Yeah, but it's not necessarily done. So so ExpressVPN supposedly, who knows if companies do lie,
Right.
that everything's in RAM, so there's no storage.
Sure.
How long does
Right.
it stay in RAM? I don't know. How long?
I think a
does-
lot of VPN companies will tell you that they don't abide by these things and
Sure.
they wouldn't fulfill the subpoena. I think that's bunk. I think they totally would.
The government has a big stick, man. I mean, like
They do.
they're afraid of it. And you can look at the Twitter files that came out with Elon. You can see how they were coercing Facebook and Twitter to get things on different whatever, you know, and
Shut
they
down,
were complying. Yeah. Then when they were shutting down people's accounts or whatever, we don't like this, shut it down. And they did it.
We don't like Kevin.
Yeah. And they shut Kevin down because he liked, you know, he went to
Star Wars.
Yeah.
So you got caught up in a dragnet, Kevin. Someone else was at Star Wars that day.
Right.
Maybe, maybe this was one of those.
Yeah.
That is kind of one of my points. Is that I think this is more common than not. I think this is an almost daily occurrence that
Yes.
Google or Facebook or whoever are turning over logs of tens of thousands of people that you're appearing in at some point, because if you hit the certain criteria, like you did watch a video about augmented reality on YouTube within a certain day,
Right.
you just got unlucky, right?
Right.
Right. And I don't think the government, you're supposed to be, innocent until proven guilty. They're not supposed to be able to look for you. You're supposed to have a right to privacy and those kind of things. And I think that line is blurring because we have companies that do have all this information.
Mm-hmm.
And suddenly now the government says, well, I have a right to that information.
Right.
And I think the Supreme Court needs to step in and say, I don't think you do.
Yeah.
You need
Yeah.
a subpoena. And there's got to be a reason for that subpoena, not that you
Mhm.
sent him a video. That's not, I mean, like, you know,
Right.
that's not, that's pretty
That's
broad.
invading the privacy of 30,000 people. For
Yeah,
you
exactly.
to
pretty
one
broad.
guy.
29,999 people didn't do anything.
Right.
Didn't do anything whatsoever. And you're
Right.
lumping them in with money laundering, you know? And
Yeah.
so like,
Yeah,
it's just
subpoena
kinda bad.
denied.
Yeah.
But apparently not. Apparently subpoena granted.
right.
Like, you know, apparently it is okay.
Yeah.
Or do they get them and they just call them up
Right.
and then say they have it? And that's the other thing too, that there was no subpoenas in the Twitter files. They just called them up and said, you're going to do this. And they
Yeah.
did it. And so you understand it's scary
Mhm.
if the FBI calls you.
Yeah,
you know?
I'm sure.
And if you ever
I
talk
mean, they
to
just
them,
called me
it's
yesterday
scary.
and it was fine. But
Yeah. You know, it's like if you say anything to an FBI agent, man, it's like you could go to jail,
sure.
Right.
you know?
Yeah.
What day was that? Wednesday. No, it wasn't. It was
Okay.
Tuesday.
Sorry. I'm sorry.
That was 6 years ago, man. I don't remember.
Like, I guess it was Tuesday.
That's you're in jail.
Sure,
That's lying to a
Tuesday.
federal officer. Okay. All right.
man.
Can I amend that statement?
True.
No. you're in
Right.
jail.
No, done.
You watched a video.
Right.
I don't know. I don't like it. It scares me.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, not that I have anything to hide. I'm not laundering
Sure.
money, but it's pretty scary when the government has that kind of power
Yeah.
over these organizations and there's that much information.
Right.
Yep. Just know, everybody, you are not private when you're online.
No. Yeah. I mean, and I think that's what people need to understand is like how much is privacy. Like I've made videos on like privacy is dead. Like true privacy is dead because we are so reliant on technology. So we have to use the technology, but the technology is the one that's collecting all the data, but we need to be aware that it's collecting the data. So
yep. The only way to be private is jump through many, many, many hoops. So people will say, well, you can be private. Yeah, you can, but the technology you've got to use, the hoops you've got to jump through. And even then, coming back to a point that we made last week, I'm not even sure that on an OS level, that it's private.
Sure.
There's not backdoors to the OS
right.
that can, that are there anyway. So, I mean, like to Paul's point, like last week about TikTok, if you've got to TikTok, you've gone way too far down the rabbit hole of of being unprivate. So if you want to be private, if you talk to a privacy expert, they're running like a crazy Linux phone with some home baked version of Linux that has literally they wrote it themselves yesterday. Right. And that's how they know it's private, right? Because that's the only way to be private.
Right. 100%.
And even these hacker groups, they get found out.
Yeah.
And they're experts in this space trying to stay anonymous so they can hack into something,
Yeah.
Well, and even in those situations too, Linux, whatever, you're still going over a network. So that network would have that information too. Like the traffic is still happening, whether it's encrypted or not or whatever, could be determined. But, you can decrypt that stuff. It would be hard, but, not impossible.
The thing too, I would say for my just a PSA announcement, when you're looking at VPNs, the free ones, don't do that.
Don't do
Please
that.
pay for your VPN.
So not only can they record all your information, they do, and then they sell it and they turn around and sell it. It's not about speed. It's exactly the opposite of what you think. I'm going to be private. No, you're not. You're being very public. You're opening every window in the house and the doors. Yelling outside, here I am. So you're doing all that. So the ones you pay for, ExpressVPN, have RAM versions of this supposedly, and it goes away. So your history is truly private. So just, especially some of them are just spyware, they're not VPNs, they're just spyware.
Yeah. And this is the ones the kids are installing for sure.
Right. It's just like.
Right. Because they think they're getting around whatever parental controls, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
100%.
You're just handing your mom's credit card to everybody is what you're doing.
Right. Exactly.